They called him a toy soldier. Then the general noticed the classified emblem. The military camp buzzed with activity, the rhythmic stomping of boots echoing across the open field. Recruits hurried back and forth, each trying to adjust their uniform, straighten their backpacks, or catch a last bit of sleep before the grueling morning drill. Elliot, in his crisp but slightly oversized uniform, felt completely out of place. His movements were stiff, almost mechanical, and he couldn't help noticing how everyone else seemed to move with confidence and ease. He had always been a careful boy, precise and methodical. While others rushed, he slowed down to make sure everything was perfect. In boot camp, that attention to detail often earned sideways glances and quiet snickers. Already, a small group of recruits had started calling him Toy Soldier. At first, Elliot tried to ignore it, focusing on the tasks at hand, but the nickname followed him wherever he went. "Hey, Toy Soldier," a tall recruit called, laughing as he adjusted his cap. "Try not to march into the mud this time." The others around him snickered, and Elliot felt his cheeks flush. He kept his eyes straight ahead, pretending he hadn't heard, but the words dug at him. He had always been different from other kids, organized, disciplined, careful, and here, in the military, those traits seemed to make him a target. Elliot's first days in the camp were exhausting. Every morning began before sunrise with a cold, wet shower and a strict physical training routine. Push-ups, running, obstacle courses. He struggled at first, his body untrained for the intensity. But Elliot had always been stubborn. He pushed himself harder, refusing to give up, even when his muscles burned and his lungs screamed for air. While others sprinted past him, sometimes laughing or shouting encouragement, Elliot focused on every step, every movement, every breath. Despite the teasing, there was something unusual about him that even the instructors noticed. He had a sharp eye for detail and an uncanny ability to notice things others overlooked. During a navigation exercise, while most recruits followed the map blindly, Elliot spotted landmarks, subtle clues in the terrain, and even small signs of weather changes. He might have seemed clumsy or rigid, but he was quietly learning, observing, and understanding the camp in ways that no one else did. One morning, during a particularly difficult drill, Elliot's small unit was tasked with crossing a wide, muddy field while carrying heavy equipment. The sun was bright, and the ground sticky with mud from last night's rain. The other recruits were struggling, slipping and sliding, but Elliot moved carefully, placing each foot deliberately. When he noticed a shallow trench hidden beneath a layer of mud, he shouted a warning just in time. A couple of recruits almost fell in, but Elliot grabbed them and guided them safely across. For a moment, the teasing stopped. Some of the recruits gave him a hesitant nod of respect. Even the instructor, a stern man with a booming voice, raised an eyebrow. "Not bad, Carter," he said. "Keep it up." Elliot felt a small flicker of pride, but he didn't smile too widely. He had learned that pride could be dangerous in this environment. Humility was safer. Still, inside, he felt a little stronger. Maybe he wasn't just the toy soldier after all. Even as he gained small victories, Elliot's social life at the camp was nearly non-existent. During free time, others grouped together to joke, play games, or share stories from home. Elliot usually sat alone, eating slowly and observing quietly. He listened to the laughter, the camaraderie, and sometimes he felt a sharp pang of loneliness. He missed the comfort of home, his parents, quiet advice, and the familiar rhythm of his old life. Yet even in his solitude, Elliot found a strange satisfaction. He knew that he had come here for a purpose, and every day he was learning something new about himself. One afternoon, during weapons training, Elliot again stood out. The instructor was demonstrating proper rifle handling, moving quickly from recruit to recruit, correcting mistakes. Most recruits fumbled with the weapon, dropping it or misaligning the sights. Elliot, however, handled the rifle with unusual care and precision. He loaded it smoothly, adjusted the sights, and fired at the target with near-perfect accuracy. A small murmur ran through the group. Even the recruits who had mocked him earlier whispered among themselves, surprised. "Where did you learn to do that?" one of them asked, curiosity replacing mockery. Elliot shrugged. "I just practiced," he said quietly. He didn't explain that he had spent countless hours alone, studying manuals, memorizing procedures, and training himself long before he ever set foot in this camp. It wasn't about showing off, it was about being ready for anything. Despite his progress, Elliot could feel the weight of judgment every day. The nickname Toy Soldier wasn't just a joke. It was a label, a reminder that he was different. He walked carefully, spoke politely, and always followed the rules, which made him an easy target. Yet inside, he felt a growing sense of determination. He would not let this place, or the opinions of others, define him. Every stumble, every mistake, and every small success was a step toward proving to himself that he belonged here. Then one morning, everything began to change. The camp was alive with unusual activity. A retired general, General Marcus Hale, had come to observe the recruits. The general was a legendary figure, known for his sharp mind and strict standards. His presence sent a ripple of excitement and anxiety through the camp. Instructors hustled to polish drills, recruit formations tightened, and everyone tried to appear perfect. Elliot, as always, focused on his own performance. He marched precisely, eyes forward, hands steady, heart racing quietly. During the inspection, General Hale paused. His eyes swept over the rows of recruits, landing on each one in turn. When he reached Elliot, he stopped for a moment longer than the others. His gaze was sharp, almost searching. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. Elliot felt a jolt, though he wasn't sure why. There was something in that brief recognition that made his heart beat faster, a quiet sense that someone had noticed more than just his stiff posture or careful movements. After the inspection, the recruits were sent to their next drills, but a whisper followed Elliot. "Did you see the way the general looked at him?" one recruit said to another. "Maybe the toy soldier isn't so useless after all." Elliot ignored it. He didn't need anyone else's approval, not yet. He had learned that recognition, if it came, was best earned quietly. That night, Elliot sat alone under the stars, writing in his small notebook. He recorded every detail of the day, the drills, the exercises, the mistakes he had made, and the moments he had succeeded. Writing helped him process everything, turning chaos into order, confusion into clarity. He wrote about the nickname, about the teasing, and about the small victories no one else noticed. Each word was a reminder that he was not invisible. He was learning, growing, and preparing for something greater. And unknown to Elliot, that something greater was already beginning to take notice of him. Hidden in the folds of his uniform was a small emblem, a symbol that few were allowed to see. It had been sewn there by someone long ago, a quiet mark of a past that Elliot barely remembered. The emblem was classified, mysterious, and deeply significant. On that day, it went unnoticed by everyone except one person, General Hale. He saw the glint, the hint of something unusual, and made a mental note. Elliot didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change. For now, he was still the toy soldier, the awkward, careful recruit who marched stiffly and spoke quietly. The one who had been laughed at, mocked, and underestimated. But beneath the uniform, beneath the nickname, lay a mind sharp enough to notice what others missed, a heart determined enough to endure what others would give up on, and a skill set that had been honed far beyond his years. As the camp settled into silence that night, Elliot closed his notebook and stared at the sky. Somewhere deep inside, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. The toy soldier, the misfit, the quiet observer, he was learning how to survive, how to adapt, and how to prepare for the moment when the world would finally see him for who he really was. Little did he know, that moment was coming sooner than he could imagine. And when it arrived, it would change everything. The morning air was crisp, and the camp seemed alive with a new sense of tension. Today was not like any other day at the boot camp. A special exercise had been scheduled, one that would test the recruits in ways they had never imagined. Elliot woke early, as always, tying his boots carefully and straightening his uniform. Even though his body ached from the previous day's drills, he felt a quiet anticipation. Something about this day felt different, though he could not explain why. The instructors gathered the recruits on the main field, their voices booming over the morning stillness. "Today," one of them announced, "you will be tested in navigation, teamwork, and survival skills. You will face challenges that require focus, strategy, and quick thinking. Do your best or you will fail." Elliot listened carefully, absorbing every word. The words strategy and focus felt familiar to him, like something he had been preparing for all his life. As the recruits were divided into small units, Elliot found himself paired with 3 others who had been particularly harsh toward him in the past. They shot him sideways glances, smirking as if to say, "Good luck, toy soldier." Elliot ignored them, focusing on the map he had been given. His eyes scanned the lines and symbols with care, noting landmarks, rivers, and hidden paths. He had always enjoyed puzzles and patterns, and maps were no different. He could almost see the route before he had even started. The exercise began, and Elliot's unit set out into the nearby forest. The trees were dense, their shadows stretching across the uneven ground. The first challenge was a river crossing. Most recruits hesitated, unsure how to get their equipment across without falling in. Elliot paused for a moment, observing the water's current, the placement of rocks, and the depth of each step. He suggested a route that allowed his teammates to move safely. "Step on the big stones," he instructed calmly. "The current is strongest near the center." To his surprise, they listened. One by one, they followed his directions and made it across without incident. A few of them muttered thanks under their breath, though they were still reluctant to show genuine appreciation. Elliot said nothing. He didn't need their praise. He only needed to ensure that they survived the exercise. The next challenge was more complicated, a simulated ambush. As they moved through a clearing, the instructors set up obstacles and enemy positions that the recruits had to avoid. Panic spread quickly among the team. One of his teammates tripped, falling to the ground and nearly exposing their position. Elliot reacted immediately, pulling the recruit behind a tree and whispering precise instructions. "Stay low, move slowly, don't make a sound." While others panicked, Elliot remained calm. His mind worked methodically, analyzing the terrain, predicting where the obstacles might appear next, and guiding his teammates with careful precision. Step by step, they navigated the course, avoiding the traps and reaching the safe zone. The instructors watched closely, their faces revealing surprise. Most recruits had struggled, but Elliot's unit had performed better than anyone expected, thanks almost entirely to his quiet leadership. After the exercise, the recruits gathered for a brief rest. Elliot sat on a log, catching his breath and taking notes in his notebook. He wrote about every step of the exercise, what had worked, what had not, and what he could improve. His teammates lingered nearby, some still reluctant to speak to him. But one of them, a tall boy named Mason, finally approached. You did pretty well today," Mason said awkwardly. "I mean, I didn't think you'd handle the ambush like that." Elliot nodded politely. "It's not about thinking I can handle it. It's about paying attention and planning carefully. That's all." Mason didn't respond immediately, but Elliot could tell the words had struck a chord. Slowly, the tension between him and the others began to ease, though the nickname Toy Soldier still lingered. Later that day, as the recruits returned to the main camp, a hush fell over the group. General Marcus Hale was walking along the edge of the field, his sharp eyes scanning every movement. Elliot noticed him from a distance and felt a familiar jolt of awareness. The general's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer than usual, and Elliot could sense a quiet recognition. It was as if the general had seen something beneath the surface, something that others had overlooked. During the afternoon session, the recruits were given a different task: reconnaissance and reporting. Each unit had to explore a portion of the forest, take note of key features, and return with accurate observations. Elliot approached the task methodically. He checked his compass, measured distances carefully, and observed patterns in the environment. While other recruits rushed through, eager to finish first, Elliot took his time, ensuring that every detail was accurate. By the time he returned, the other units had already reported in. The instructors compared their notes, and it became clear that Elliot's observations were more precise and thorough than anyone else's. Even the instructors exchanged impressed glances. One of them muttered, "He's not just lucky, he's thinking ahead." Elliot quietly collected his notes and waited for the next set of instructions, feeling a small but satisfying sense of accomplishment. Then came the moment that would change everything. General Hale approached Elliot personally, his expression serious but not unkind. "Carter," he said, stopping just a few feet away. "May I see your uniform?" Elliot hesitated for a fraction of a second, then complied, straightening his jacket and keeping his hands steady. The general's eyes scanned the fabric carefully, pausing at a small emblem stitched near the chest pocket. Elliot had almost forgotten about it. It was a tiny, circular emblem, subtly detailed, and placed there by someone he barely remembered. Most people would not notice it, and Elliot had always assumed it was just a decoration. But General Hale's gaze was different. He leaned slightly closer, squinting, and then straightened, his expression tightening. "This emblem," the general said quietly, "it is classified." "Where did you get it?" Elliot's heart skipped a beat. He had never mentioned it to anyone. I don't know, he admitted. It's been on my uniform since I can remember. The general's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. He seemed to weigh Elliot carefully, as if trying to decide something important. You have skills beyond what most recruits display, General Hale continued. Precision, focus, observation, these are qualities that cannot be taught in a few weeks. You may have been trained long before you came here, whether you know it or not. Elliot felt a mixture of pride and confusion. Who had trained him? How had this emblem come to be on his uniform? Questions he had never thought to ask suddenly demanded answers. For the rest of the day, Elliot noticed subtle changes in the way people treated him. The teasing was not gone entirely, but there was a cautious respect in the glances he received. Even some of the recruits who had mocked him seemed hesitant, unsure how to approach someone now recognized by a figure as important as General Hale. Elliot didn't seek attention. He simply continued his routine, taking notes, observing, and preparing quietly for whatever came next. That evening, Elliot sat alone in his tent, thinking about the events of the day. He traced the emblem with his fingers, trying to remember where it had come from. Fragments of childhood memories floated in his mind. A teacher giving him a strange book filled with symbols, a mentor who had disappeared suddenly, and a feeling that he had been prepared for something important long before he understood what it meant. The pieces didn't fit together yet, but he sensed that he was on the edge of discovering something life-changing. Sleep came fitfully. Elliot dreamed of the exercises, the forest, the river crossings, and the ambushes. But more than that, he dreamed of the emblem glowing faintly against his chest and of General Hale's eyes, sharp and knowing. In the dream, someone whispered, "It's your time, Elliot. You are ready." He woke with a start, his heart pounding. For the first time, he felt that the nickname Toy Soldier did not define him. There was more, much more, to his life than he had realized. The next morning brought a new sense of anticipation. Elliot woke earlier than usual, moved with quiet confidence and prepared for the day's exercises. His mind was alert, his senses sharp, and his determination stronger than ever. He knew that the day would bring new challenges, but he also sensed an opportunity to prove himself not just to his peers, but to someone who had the power to see beyond appearances. As he joined the other recruits, Elliot felt a small spark of pride. He was still careful, methodical, and observant, but he was also beginning to understand that his unique skills made him special. The Toy Soldier was no longer just a nickname. It was the beginning of a story that was only starting to unfold. And somewhere in the camp, General Hale was watching, waiting for the right moment to reveal what he already knew. That Elliot Carter was no ordinary recruit, and that his journey was only just beginning. Elliot woke that morning with the memory of General Hale's words echoing. His mind, precision, focus, observation, these are qualities that cannot be taught in a few weeks. They lingered like a quiet challenge, and he felt a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. Who had trained him before? Why was the emblem on his uniform so important? For years, he had lived a life of careful routines and quiet preparation, but today, it seemed as though something bigger was waiting for him. Breakfast in the mess hall was unusually quiet. Elliot moved to the far side of the room, as he always did, and began eating slowly. Around him, the other recruits whispered about the exercises, the river crossings, and the ambush. Some of them still sneered at him, calling him Toy Soldier. But he noticed that the sneers were softer, less confident than before. Even Mason, who had been reluctant to speak to him, gave a small nod as he passed by. Elliot didn't smile. He had learned that recognition often came quietly, and humility was its own reward. After breakfast, the recruits were called to the training field. General Hale was there again, his presence commanding attention. The instructors moved quickly, assigning new tasks. Today, the challenge was both physical and mental. Each unit was to navigate a dense section of forest, locate hidden checkpoints, and report back with precise observations. Elliot's unit gathered around him, waiting for instructions. He opened the map carefully, noting landmarks, trees, and streams. Unlike the others, he didn't rush. He studied every detail, visualizing the route in his mind before taking the first step. "We will take the eastern path first," he said calmly, pointing to a cluster of trees near a small hill. "It's longer but safer. Watch for low branches and uneven ground." His teammates exchanged uncertain glances but followed his lead. As they moved through the forest, Elliot noticed subtle details others missed. A broken branch indicated that someone or something had passed this way recently. Tiny footprints in the mud suggested the presence of small animals nearby. A change in the wind direction hinted at a nearby stream. He pointed out each observation to his unit, explaining why it mattered. Slowly, they began to understand that his careful attention was not overthinking. It was strategy. The real test came when the instructors set up a simulated crisis. A section of the trail was blocked by fallen trees, and hidden obstacles forced the unit to navigate carefully. One of his teammates panicked, stepping too quickly and nearly tripping over a log. Elliot grabbed his arm, whispering, "Slow down, take your time, watch the roots." Step by step, they moved past the obstacles, reaching a clearing where the next checkpoint awaited. At the checkpoint, Elliot recorded every detail: the types of trees, the shape of the land, the location of rocks, and even subtle changes in light. The instructors checked the notes, and for the first time, someone in authority acknowledged his work openly. "Carter, your observations are precise," one instructor said, handing the notebook back. "Not many recruits notice these details. Keep this up." Elliot nodded politely, feeling a quiet sense of validation, but it wasn't just skill that made him stand out. There was a calm confidence in the way he approached challenges. While other recruits rushed and panicked, Elliot thought before he acted. He measured every step, considered every option, and guided others with quiet authority. Slowly, whispers began to circulate among the recruits. Some still called him Toy Soldier, but a few now spoke of him with respect. He was no longer just awkward and rigid. He was skilled, dependable, and quietly commanding. After completing the exercise, the recruits returned to the camp. Elliot carried his notebook, noting everything he had learned. Mason walked beside him, breaking the silence. "I didn't think you'd handle today like that," he admitted, hesitating. You're different," Elliot nodded. "Different doesn't mean better. It just means I notice things others don't." Mason seemed to ponder this quietly, as though understanding a truth he had never considered before. Later that day, General Hale requested a private conversation with Elliot. The general's presence was intimidating, but Elliot felt no fear. He had learned to face challenges calmly, to analyze situations before reacting. "Carter," General Hale said, his voice low and serious, "I need to know more about you. That emblem on your uniform, it is not ordinary. Where did it come from?" Elliot hesitated. He had always known the emblem was unusual, but he had never been asked about it directly. I don't know exactly," he admitted. "It's been with me for as long as I can remember. Someone gave it to me when I was a child. I don't remember who." The general's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You were trained before this camp, weren't you?" Elliot shook his head. "Not consciously. I remember learning patterns, drills, strategies, but I never knew why. It felt natural." General Hale studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You have been prepared for something important, Carter, something beyond ordinary training. That emblem, it signifies a level of skill and readiness that very few possess. I have seen it before only in the most carefully selected recruits. You are special." Elliot felt a mixture of pride and confusion. Special. He had always felt different, but he had never imagined that anyone else would see it too. The general continued, "I will be mentoring you personally. You need to understand your skills, your strengths, and what you are capable of. This camp is only the beginning. There is more waiting for you, opportunities that require precision, intelligence, and courage." Elliot listened carefully. He had dreamed of being recognized for his abilities, but he had never imagined it would come like this. A mentor, a guide, someone who saw him for who he truly was, it felt like the beginning of a new chapter in his life. In the following days, Elliot's training intensified. Under General Hale's guidance, he practiced advanced observation techniques, strategic thinking, and leadership skills. The general emphasized patience, attention to detail, and quiet decision-making. Elliot absorbed every lesson eagerly, realizing that his previous experiences, the routines, the careful attention to rules, the long hours of practice, had prepared him for this moment. One afternoon, while working alone on a reconnaissance exercise, Elliot discovered something unexpected. Hidden among the trees was a small, forgotten structure, a storage shed used for training supplies. Inside, he found old maps, notes, and training manuals, many marked with the same emblem stitched on his uniform. As he examined them, a memory surfaced. A man from his childhood, someone who had taught him drills and strategies, had mentioned that symbols carried meaning. Elliot realized that this emblem was not just decoration. It was a key, a sign of preparation for something larger. He took the materials to General Hale, who examined them carefully. "This confirms it," the general said quietly. "You have been part of a unique program, trained from childhood for specialized tasks. Most recruits would not recognize these materials, let alone understand their purpose. You, however, have been prepared for this moment." Elliot felt a sense of clarity. His life, which had seemed ordinary in many ways, was now connected to something extraordinary. The days passed, and Elliot's skills continued to grow. His teammates began to rely on him more, not just for guidance in exercises, but for his calm judgment and strategic thinking. The nickname Toy Soldier faded in importance. It was replaced by a quiet respect, though Elliot never sought attention. He had learned that true recognition came not from others' words, but from understanding his own abilities and using them effectively. One evening, as the sun set over the camp, Elliot reflected on how far he had come. He remembered the first day when he had felt awkward, out of place, and ridiculed. Now he stood with confidence, guided by a mentor who recognized his potential, and aware of a legacy that had prepared him for challenges beyond ordinary imagination. He realized that the emblem on his chest was more than a symbol. It was a promise of the path ahead, a path that would test his mind, body, and courage. As night fell, Elliot wrote in his notebook, documenting not just exercises and observations, but thoughts, questions, and discoveries about himself. He wrote about the emblem, about General Hale, and about the sense that his life was leading him to something significant. For the first time, he felt that the nickname Toy Soldier was not an insult, but a symbol of the patience, discipline, and perseverance that had brought him this far. And somewhere beyond the camp, the world waited for Elliot Carter, not as a toy soldier, but as someone who had been carefully prepared for a mission that would require all the skills, focus, and courage he had developed. He did not yet know the full scope of what lay ahead, but for the first time he felt ready to face it. Elliot woke to the soft light of dawn, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. The camp was quiet, except for the distant sounds of birds and the occasional shuffle of boots. Today felt different. There was a weight in the air, a sense of expectation that Elliot could feel in his bones. After weeks of training, observation, and exercises, today was the day when everything he had learned would be put to the test. General Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the field, his sharp eyes scanning the recruits. Elliot approached him, boots clicking against the wooden planks of the parade ground. The general did not speak immediately. Instead, he studied Elliot silently, his gaze like a measuring scale weighing not just skill, but character, focus, and determination. Finally, he nodded. "Carter, today you will lead your unit through a comprehensive simulation. It will test your strategy, leadership, and decision-making. Treat it as if the outcome is real. Are you ready?" Elliot nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. He had been ready for this moment for years, even before he understood why. "I'm ready, sir," he said clearly, his voice steady. There was no hesitation, no doubt. The other recruits around him whispered nervously, but Elliot ignored them. His focus was on the task ahead, on every detail he would need to navigate. The simulation began with a briefing. The recruits were informed that they had to secure a series of checkpoints scattered across a dense forest while avoiding obstacles and completing precise reconnaissance. The stakes were high, but Elliot's mind was calm. He studied the map carefully, memorizing paths, landmarks, and alternative routes. Unlike the others who relied on speed or brute force, Elliot relied on careful observation and methodical planning. As the unit moved into the forest, Elliot's leadership became evident immediately. He instructed his teammates on the safest routes, warned them of uneven ground, and reminded them to move quietly and deliberately. One of the recruits who had mocked him weeks before stumbled and almost fell. Elliot caught him, whispering instructions on balance and positioning. "Take your time, one step at a time, focus." The recruit nodded, surprised at how calm and capable Elliot was. Throughout the exercise, Elliot noticed details others missed. He identified hidden streams, animal trails, and subtle changes in terrain that could indicate danger. When the unit encountered a fallen tree blocking their path, Elliot quickly assessed the situation. "We can go around, but it will take longer," he said, pointing to a narrow ridge. "Or we can carefully climb over, watch for loose branches." With his guidance, the team navigated the obstacle safely without losing time. At the first checkpoint, Elliot carefully documented every detail: the layout of the land, the position of trees and rocks, and the location of any hidden markers. He reviewed the notes with his unit, ensuring everyone understood the significance of the observations. The instructors watched closely, impressed with the thoroughness of his work. For the first time, many of the recruits realized that Elliot was not just precise, he was exceptional. The challenges grew more difficult as the day progressed. The team encountered steep hills, slippery mud patches, and dense undergrowth. Each obstacle required careful thought and coordination. Elliot's calm demeanor inspired his teammates. While panic spread among some, Elliot's quiet confidence created a sense of trust. His orders were clear, and his reasoning was logical. Slowly, the unit began to operate as a cohesive team, relying on his guidance to navigate the complexities of the simulation. During a particularly tense moment, the unit approached a narrow ravine with a fast-flowing stream at the bottom. The only way across was a fallen log, slick with morning dew. Elliot paused, assessing the situation. "We move one at a time," he instructed. "I'll go first to test it. Everyone else follows slowly and carefully." His heart beat steadily, but he remained calm. Step by step, he crossed the log, careful to balance every movement. The team followed his lead, and everyone made it across safely. As the sun climbed higher, Elliot led his team to the final checkpoint. It was a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. Here, the instructors had hidden a series of markers that needed to be identified and recorded. Elliot moved methodically, noting each marker, its location, and any patterns or anomalies. His teammates assisted, but it was clear that his leadership had guided them to success. The instructors nodded approvingly, their expressions revealing respect and surprise. When the simulation ended, the recruits gathered back at the camp. General Hale approached Elliot, his face serious but not unkind. "Carter," he said, "today you have demonstrated not only skill, but leadership, focus, and the ability to adapt under pressure. Few recruits achieve what you have accomplished. Your preparation, discipline, and attention to detail have set you apart." Elliot felt a surge of pride but remained humble. He had learned that recognition was not about ego, it was about responsibility. The general continued, "There is more for you, Elliot. The emblem you carry is not just a symbol. It is a key to a larger mission, one that requires the exact skills you have shown today. I will begin preparing you for assignments beyond this camp. You are ready for the next stage." Elliot's mind raced with questions, excitement, and a sense of purpose he had never felt before. His life, once defined by careful routines and quiet observation, was about to change in ways he had only imagined. Over the next few weeks, Elliot trained under General Hale's personal guidance. The training was more advanced, combining strategy, observation, leadership, and decision-making. Every exercise was designed to challenge him, to push him beyond what he thought was possible. Elliot absorbed every lesson eagerly, applying everything he had learned over the years. He became faster, sharper, and more confident. His teammates began to see him in a new light. The nickname Toy Soldier faded completely, replaced by respect and admiration. Even those who had mocked him before sought his guidance, realizing that his careful thinking and precise planning often saved the team from mistakes. Elliot did not let the praise affect him. He remained focused on his training, on understanding the full significance of the emblem, and on preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. One afternoon, while reviewing maps and reconnaissance reports, Elliot had a moment of realization. The emblem on his uniform was not just a mark of recognition. It was a signal, a connection to a program that had trained him from childhood. Everything he had done, every exercise, every detail he had observed, was part of a preparation for missions far beyond ordinary training. He understood now that his life had been leading to this point, and that he had been ready long before he even realized it. The following week, General Hale gave him a new assignment. It was a test unlike any before, a simulated mission requiring navigation, strategy, and teamwork under time constraints. Elliot led his unit through the exercise, applying every skill he had learned. They faced unexpected obstacles, including hidden markers, complex terrain, and simulated emergencies. Elliot's calm leadership ensured the team stayed focused, solved problems quickly, and adapted to changing conditions. By the end of the mission, it was clear that Elliot had transformed. The misfit recruit who had once been called Toy Soldier had become a capable leader, respected by his peers and recognized by one of the most experienced military figures in the country. General Hale praised him openly, noting his intelligence, strategic thinking, and calm demeanor under pressure. Elliot felt a quiet satisfaction, not from the praise, but from knowing that he had fulfilled the potential he had sensed within himself for so long. That night, Elliot sat alone under the stars, reflecting on his journey. He thought about the early days of boot camp, the teasing, the uncertainty, and the challenges he had faced. He remembered the emblem on his uniform, the mysterious figure who had guided him as a child, and the realization that he had been prepared for something greater all along. He felt gratitude for the mentors, the lessons, and the experiences that had shaped him into the person he had become. He also thought about the future. The simulation and exercises were only the beginning. Beyond the camp lay missions that would test his skills, his judgment, and his courage. He was no longer just a recruit. He was a prepared, capable operative, ready for challenges that few could face. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time he felt truly confident in his ability to navigate it. As dawn broke the next morning, Elliot packed his notebook and prepared for another day of training. The camp was quiet, the air filled with the promise of new challenges. General Hale approached him with a small smile. "Carter, the world beyond this camp awaits you. Remember what you have learned, trust in your skills, and continue to grow. You are ready for what comes next." Elliot nodded, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known before. The toy soldier was no more. In its place stood a young man who had faced ridicule, struggled, and persevered. He had discovered his strengths, honed his skills, and earned the respect of those around him. He was ready for the missions that lay ahead, confident in his abilities, and aware that his journey had only just begun. With a final glance at the camp, Elliot stepped forward, embracing the future with determination, courage, and the quiet confidence of someone who had finally found his place. The lessons of the past, the guidance of mentors, and the recognition of his own abilities had prepared him for a life far beyond ordinary expectations. And as he moved forward, the emblem on his uniform glinted in the morning sun, a symbol of purpose, preparation, and a future filled with possibilities. Elliot Carter had transformed. The world that had once called him a toy soldier would soon see the truth. He was ready, capable, and unstoppable. His story was no longer about ridicule or doubt. It was about courage, intelligence, and the power of preparation. And with each step he took, he moved closer to the challenges that awaited him, confident in the knowledge that he had been ready all along.